Biden declines meeting with Dem mayors demanding action on border crisis. Yeah, we get it. Biden doesn't care. Let me give you the actual story. Here's a video. Texas installed a border fence to keep illegal migrants out. The federal government came in and lifted it to allow hundreds of illegal immigrants to pour in. They say it's not a crisis, it's an invasion. Can I get this video? There you go. This is crazy.
It's like treasonous.
When did this happen?
Well, let me turn that down. So this is just, first, let me just say, this is clearly a video that appears to be Eagle Pass. I'm not entirely sure. We don't have the exact location or whatever confirmed, but you clearly have CBP trucks there and a backloader lifting up the razor wire, allowing, this is hundreds of people.
What in the actual hell? Like,
That's
how
crazy,
is this,
right?
It is mind-blowing that the federal government is lifting up,
Breaking the law.
like, not only do they not enforce the law, but they're breaking the law, aiding and abetting people that are breaking the law. This is mind-blowing.
I just want to stress this once again. And, we'll definitely tie in aid to Israel with it all, too. The federal government hates you. They are taking your money and your savings. They are spending it on money to blow up kids, and they're spending it to facilitate criminal activities in this country. What would you call it if members of your own, of individuals in your own government are giving resources and material aid to people who are not citizens in order for those people to break the laws of your country?
Yeah, I think that's treason.
It might be treason, but we're not at war with these people, so maybe not. But once again, to bundle all of it up together, just to we'll make it anti-war too. Yeah, they're not taking care of us. Mm-hmm. If you're on the left, ask yourself why you don't have health care. Okay. If you're on the right, ask why it is your savings your buying power continually goes down. It doesn't matter who you are or what you want. We can all agree the first step is these people need to be stopped. We need to get them out of government. We need law enforcement to stop people who are committing crimes.
This is like, okay, treason, and I don't have the whole definition of the word treason, but it's the crime of attacking a state authority to which one owes allegiance. The federal government owes its allegiance to the state of Texas. It owes its allegiance to every state in the union. And if it's violating Texas law to incite criminals, that's treasonous, in my opinion. That's just a sentence of it. I don't know.
Do we know anything more about this? Like when this happened, or who exactly
this has been ongoing.
These people are?
This has been ongoing. There was actually, the bigger story was that CBP was snipping the razor wire.
Yeah, I remember that.
And this is a component of that.
Okay.
So I'm assuming this video is probably recent, considering this whole Eagle Pass thing has been going on in the past several weeks. Mm.
And then is there ever any explanation? Like, because I remember seeing the snipping. Have they ever said anything about that?
They claim that they're legally obligated to allow people into the country to apply for asylum or something like that.
Wow.
But here's the issue. If they're here, allowing them, the argument is once they cross the middle of the river, now that they're in America, they can't be deported. And I'm just like, yeah, I don't buy it, because I think it was Texas that put the buoy barrier in the water, and they came and said, you got to get that out now. It's like, well, hold on. When you put it in the water, you say, nope, it has to go. When you put it on land, you say, oh, well, they're already here.
Is this confirmed that this is exactly what we think it is? Because I've seen a lot of fake videos these days.
Fair point, but I mean, this is a CBP truck. Okay, so this is Auden B. Cabello, citizen journalist, document the migrant journey. And he says, Eagle Pass, Texas state versus federal battle continues, this time with forklifts. This is November 2nd. Last week, the federal government used a forklift to raise wire and let 300 migrants in. So I don't believe it's a forklift. I believe it's a backloader. I could be wrong.
I remember I saw a video recently of people like putting cardboard and stuff under the barbed wire, crawling, and then they actually made them turn around and go back.
Wow.
But that was just kind of a random video on Twitter.
There's another video where Border Patrol opens the gate at the bollard fencing and lets people in, and they're just like, I'm just like, what? This is why they got so mad when Trump said build a wall. Before Trump said we're going to go ham on the border, these people were just coming across, and what was happening is really interesting. They weren't reporting apprehensions because there weren't any. So when they say there were only 50,000 apprehensions, immigration was low. No, it was probably 550,000 illegal crossings and only 50,000 actually apprehended. When Donald Trump started apprehending, apprehensions skyrocketed, and they said, see, it's getting worse under Trump. Now we can see what's going on. You're right. They're not being apprehended. They're being welcomed in. And we do know the Biden administration was trafficking children. I want to stress this. Statement of fact. The Biden administration, statement of absolute fact, trafficked migrant children. Have a nice day.
They're helping blow up children in Gaza right now, too.
That's fair. And they're also blowing up children in many other countries.
Yeah, that's right.
I'm not biased. We can't be biased about one. Yeah, I mean, Yemen. Secret war in Yemen. I mean, that's been ongoing for a really long time. But I guess, who was just saying that the crisis has only just ended? Probably because the U.S. is shifting all of its resources to...
Oh, in Yemen?
Yeah.
Well, there's been a ceasefire between the Houthis, who control most of North Yemen, and the Saudis, who the U.S. was backing in that war, which is a very brutal war. There's been a ceasefire that held since April 2022 relatively well. There hasn't been any airstrikes. There's been fighting at the border. But now you have the Houthis firing missiles at Israel, and things could get, it puts the Saudis in a spot.
I don't care.
Okay.
We should not be funding it.
You're right.
We should not be involved in this stuff.
We shouldn't be, but we are.
I know.
That's the thing. That's why we do need to care.
No,
because
but
to the Houthis, because you might not care, not many people are aware, but if you read Houthi media, every attack, every bombing, every shelling is not just the Saudis doing it. They call it U.S.-Saudi aggression.
So, but I'll clarify. I'm kind of being a dick. I of course care about war, and I don't want it to happen. But I think the U.S. makes it worse.
You're right.
And then they're spending my money to make it worse. And we had an excellent, amazing conversation this morning with Stephen Marsh on the culture war, and we were basically just like what Stephen said, something like the U.S. If you're going to go up against the U.S. military, you're in trouble. And I'm like, why? They lose every war, but they win the engagements. That's a horrifying thing to say. The U.S. can actually blow you up successfully, but they can't maintain control. It just falls apart.
They don't have like war goals. I haven't seen like a legitimate war goal from the United States government.
They just want to keep the wars going
since like World War II. I mean, there hasn't been a legal war in the United States since World War II. None of them declared Vietnam. I don't know what the purpose of that war was. They never really, that conflict, Vietnam, was it to get oil? They never really said to stop communism.
They said it was containment. Yeah.
So vague.
It was to contain communism because they were considered it the domino theory, which was as countries fell to communism, more countries would fall to communism.
That's like a never-ending thing. So that's not really a war goal.
Well, it's ended, kind of.
It was a proxy war with the Soviets. And
I think they were trying to get Malaysian oil, and they just never want to tell.
No. Listen,
well, they won't say that out loud.
Ian.
There's a lot of Malaysian oil. They tried to get the TPP.
World War I, World War II, and the Cold War were all basically the same thing. Obviously, they're very right. So Vietnam is a component of the U.S. was at war with the Soviets, but we were all scared if we engage in direct conflict, nuclear weapons will fly. So we did these. We're in war in Vietnam, and it was really Soviet and communist Chinese interests.
Well, you see what they're doing in Ukraine. They use the same justification. The claim is that if Putin isn't stopped in Ukraine, he's going to roll into Eastern Europe. But that's just complete nonsense.
Nonsense doesn't even cut it.
You got to do the narrator meme. He would not.
Yeah.
He would not.
But John Mearsheimer, he's the international relations professor, the realist guy. His lectures, really popular on YouTube. He was always warning for years and years that the U.S. and the West was going to provoke a war in Ukraine. He always says that before 2014, the coup in Kiev and the civil war in the Donbass and Russia annexing Crimea, he said before that, they never said Putin was, trying to go into Europe. That was never a talking point. Then all of a sudden he became this guy who wanted to reinstate the Russian Empire and, roll into Poland. But it's just a nonsense talking point.
Yeah. Putin, I think of 3 or 4 weeks ago, maybe a month and a half ago, was like, the collective West has lost its mind, or the West has lost its collective mind. It was just a hilarious statement. He's just looking at it like, what in the hell is he doing?
He's right. I don't think he's a good guy, but he's right.
It's so weird. Like, oh, geez.
Dude,
how do we strip this apart?
The bifurcation in American politics is just so insane. There's no unification on what this country should be doing. There are people who are holding on to the last vestiges of the American constitutional republic. There's a lot of them. But then I think the average run-of-the-mill person doesn't know or care, and then the left is actively seeking to subvert. I think what we're seeing with we talked about this morning again. Stephen mentioned that the United States was born of rebels, and that rebel mentality exists within our documents. Our documents were written by rebels, and we maintain that even through the Civil War. It all makes sense, right? Mm-hmm. And then Phil brought up exactly what the government is doing, and I said they're trying to stamp out the rebel spirit, which is a component of why they're like, get as many non-rebellious people to come into the United States and that will start to erode our ideals.
That's part of the thing. One of the things that I'm concerned about with not just with CBDCs, like central bank digital currencies, but also with the idea of basic living
Universal basic income.
UBI. When people are on the government payroll, and everyone is on the government payroll, that really is going to make people completely subservient. Now there's still people that are like, I don't need the government. I don't want to deal with the government. All I want to do is live my life in a way that is as independent as possible. If you have a CBDC, definitely, if you have some kind of UBI, there's going to be so many people that are just completely and totally dependent on the government, more so than now. Now, most people in urban areas, most people in cities are on some level dependent on the government, even if it's dependent on the government to make sure that they can get out of their driveway if it snows, or, you know, to make sure that they have water and sewage, plumbing and stuff like that. But if you have people that are getting a UBI, everything is going to be dependent on the government. Everything, but all of their income, that means that you're dependent on the government to eat.
But realistically, the moment a UBI goes into effect, the economy spirals out of control, and within a month, there's no economy at all.
I strongly
and no one's
agree.
eating.
Yeah, I just saw that we print $1 trillion in the last 3 months. $1 trillion.
Yeah,
It's crazy.
I think it took 250 years to get to the first trillion.
And what was it? 80% is just specifically for Zelensky himself, personally.
Just going
bought
in
him a big mansion and a big
feed his
boat.
cat.
And to feed his cat.
Biden's asking for $105 billion to fund the war in Ukraine, the war in Gaza, to give military aid to Taiwan so they could work on provoking another war in Southeast Asia. And there is some for border security to entice the Republicans, but
right,
it's just an insane amount of money, $105 billion.
But I love this. Biden's like, we need money for Ukraine and Israel and Taiwan and the border.
Yeah.
And the border. Yeah. And the Republicans are like, border? Can I go to my constituents and say border? Omnibus?
I'm looking at the U.S. national debt clock. Oh, we're going to say about Taiwan.
I was going to say, Taiwan's the crazy thing because I don't know how the U.S. maintains a conflict with an island 90 miles off the coast of mainland China.
Yeah.
I don't know, but
what you do, man?
I've heard rumors that there are that the United States has special forces there.
Yeah, we have a few hundred. Yeah, they recently sent a few hundred troops to Taiwan. It's really the highest troop level since the U.S. and China normalized relations, because part of that deal was for the U.S. to pull its troops out and its mutual defense treaty with Taiwan and eventually stop selling them weapons. But the way they made that commitment was so vague that they'll tell you they can interpret it in 12 different ways. But a big part of it was pulling the troops out. And recently the U.S. sent about 100 to 200 troops, which doesn't sound like a lot, but if you're China, you know, it's very provocative to China. And you mentioned sustaining a war. Go
real quick, to make a point. Imagine if China stationed 100 troops in Cuba.
Yeah.
China has actual police forces inside the United States.
That's a good point.
I mean, like they're not policing regular Americans, but they're policing Chinese Americans.
What's the story with that? Because I've heard
there
about
are actual.
That. I think them calling it police stations is a pretty dramatic way to describe it.
It's Chinese law enforcement operating out of the United States with offices to go to Chinese citizens living in the United States and arrest them for crimes against China.
From what I understand, that's not what it is. Again, this is something I don't really know about. But
FBI thought it was.
Okay.
I'm not a big fan of the FBI.
The FBI says a lot of things.
Right, yeah.
From what I understand, they have these kind of offices where that are, on paper, they say that they're there to help Chinese Americans, like with certain documents and stuff. And then they might be going after dissidents through those offices, which a lot of countries do. I mean, India might have killed a Sikh in Canada. If that was China that killed a Uyghur in Canada, we would be talking about that every day.
Yeah.
But India kind of, the U.S. is looking at India as this new partner in containing China.
This is from New York Post says that they've opened 4 police stations, Chinese, in North America. 3 of them are in Toronto. One's in New York City.
Mm-hmm. But I know they do.
What does that mean, police station?
To target Chinese Americans for infractions.
Who knows? So maybe one thing on paper and another thing.
But I want to stress this. I think it's fair to say that there's definitely a very warped perspective on what China is like for Americans.
Yeah.
And I think we often get people saying, like, get on, Lawai or Serpentsa to come on and talk about China. You go to a Chinese city and you're going to go to Pizza Hut and you're going to have a slice of pizza. Like, these things exist. There's competing interest and power at play, and there's no saints. There's no saints and there's no saviors.
I get the
I've been
vibe
to China.
that
I've been to Shanghai. It was.
Did you have the
awesome.
hot? Did you get the stuffed crust with the hot dog in it?
No.
See, that's what I'm talking about. You go to China, and this is what concerns me. You go to Pizza, I think it's Pizza Hut, and they will they will stuff your crust with anything, including hot dogs.
I get the
Wow.
vibe that they're
That
way
actually
more.
sounds kinda good.
They're way more allied and aligned with the United States than like the Iranians. Like the Chinese are severely oligarchic businessmen. They don't want conflict or war, destruction. They want to improve, and they're willing to. They want to buy us out, if anything.
You are correct. The Chinese try to cut deals with American politicians to gain power. They want to buy land. They want to use soft power to expand. Whereas Iran, very different.
And I'm using Iran as an example, but the people that have been heavily radicalized in the Middle East from all these bombings and things.
Well,
are like,
the people that have been heavily radicalized in the Middle East are radicalized for multiple different reasons. The Chinese, like Tim said, it's all soft power, but they still want to be able to influence, and they want to be, they're using soft power, but it is to have the United States have policies that benefit China, whether they be indirectly or directly benefiting China.
But China, the really scary thing about Taiwan, so you mentioned sustaining a war right off China's coast. If you look at the think tanks that have been putting out these war games and about what a battle would be like, the first battle over Taiwan, like the first few weeks, and they never consider nuclear escalation. So this is the really scary part about China, is that our Pentagon, our military leaders, you hear them say they're openly planning for a direct war with China. They're saying they're trying to deter war, but if it happens, they're going to take them head on. They have nukes. But anyway, with the war games, they don't take into account nuclear escalation. But besides that, in the first few weeks, a naval battle over Taiwan, thousands and thousands of American sailors will be killed. Scott Horton recently just interviewed Lyle Goldstein. He worked at the Naval War College for 20 years. He speaks Chinese. He's an expert on this. He was saying he thinks tens of thousands of American sailors would be killed in the first few weeks.
Well, there was we talked about this, I think, the other day, that China does a war game, and in every single scenario, a U.S. carrier gets sunk.
Yeah, if you
almost
got
immediately.
boats on the
Same thing with our war
surface,
games. It's really the same result.
it's because
we got to do like a war game, like a D&D style war game. That'd be fun.
That'd be really cool.
Oh, we talked about doing this. We should do two. We should do World War III and Civil War, and do like a 2-hour long D&D session style thing.
Yeah,
that does sound fun.
These boats.
And we should bring you and Scott, and you guys can
We'll be like, no, guys.
No, you'll be the neocons.
Everybody get along, man.
You're gonna role play as the neocons.
Okay, yeah, that sounds fun.
I think you know them well enough, and you're gonna be like, war. I'm like,
Yeah.
Scott's gonna be like, I'm John Bolton.
There's like a World War III RPG, like 2020 or something, 2030. I don't know. They had it. I used to play it in the 90s, or we had the book. But see, boats. Boats are like so vulnerable to hypersonic missiles now, especially boats that are close to the Chinese land. Like they're sitting targets.
And that's what China's been preparing for, is a war right there.
Someone just sent me an email or tweeted at me. There's an injunction. The state of Texas got an injunction on the federal government for what they were doing. It says the date on it is, one second, filed 10/27/23.
So that this they said was from last week. It's possible that this video is from before.
Yeah. This is probably what caused the injunction, caused them to get to seek the injunction.
Wait,
so apparently,
that's to the state of Texas?
the state of Texas got an injunction on the federal government to get them to stop basically knocking down the borders, so that way
that's crazy.
illegal immigrants can come into the country.
Maybe not treason, but they're definitely attacking state authority by going
It's
into
not
Texas
that. They're
and messing
aiding
them up.
and abetting people who are not citizens, who are committing crimes against our nation.
Yeah, because technically the feds are supposed to take care of the border, right? Like not the state of Texas, because it's an international border. So the federal government has jurisdiction, and they're totally abdicating their authority.
Not only what do you say? Abdicating it, but also violating it.
Well, yeah, that's what I mean. They're not doing their job,
And they're making it worse too. It's not that they're just not there; it's that they're in there cutting the barbed wires and letting people in.
Thanks for watching this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. Hang out with us live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. and become a member over at timcast.com for uncensored, members-only shows exclusive. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.